If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on any listening platform like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, welcome to the Wartime Leadership Podcast, where we're starting to explore what it looks like to have spiritual resiliency in our lives. Today, we are excited because it is the first episode of this adventure that we've been placed on, and we are excited because I went searching high, I went searching low, I went searching out and about. And there has been no one said more highly about than Chief Vaden, Chief Caleb Vaden. I am so pleased to have you here. Between Nina and Trip and the EQ Gangster, everybody kind of just threw out ideas, and this is the one that we went with. So everyone, please welcome Chief Vaden. Chief, it is great to have you here.
It's awesome to be with you, man, and to start this journey out. Wow, that's a complete honor. I'm the first guest on your show. I guess there's two ways this could go. I could be really awesome or really bad. We just really won't know, I suppose. But being the first guest. But thank you so much, man, for the invite, reaching out to me. And I just look forward to being able to share with you and whatever space that we're talking about here and the things that we're talking about. And hopefully it reaches your intent, man. So just thankful to be here.
Grateful. If there's any way that you can kind of walk us through your history, where you've gone in your career, what you've seen, what you've done, what your primary job is, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I'll start out with I'm currently the command chief out at the 461st Air Control Wing, home of the Liberators, Liberator Nation out here, as we say, in Robbins Air Force Base, Georgia. We're a tenant wing on the base here. But and if you're not familiar with what all that means, if you're a civilian type listener, it's kind of like I'm a human resource manager that does some of that and a lot of other things for quite a few hundred, actually over thousands of people. So we're pretty busy. However, I think, man, Nathan, to back off and maybe let's go. That's a start out point. That's where I'm at now, I guess you could say, and let's back up to where. Kind of my childhood, right? So I come from a very strange and abusive type of background, and we won't get into details of that. We won't have the audience, go through those emotional scars. But I tell you what, I learned a lot. I didn't know what I was learning at the time, but going through all the different types of abuse that I went through, and then my brothers and sisters as well. So it was a lot of us in the family, and a lot of us went through a lot of bad things. But it gives you the opportunity. A lot of times people say the things we go through and the things we face make us who we are. And I know I'm not going to have a whole lot of fanfare, never have in this regard. But what I say is that didn't shape us. They gave us the opportunity to make decisions that ends up, shaping our character, right? It definitely affects us, but gave me the opportunity. And just so thankful and grateful for God. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian. A man of faith, and I'm not ashamed of that. I don't force that on anyone else, but that is who I am, and that's the God I serve, and I'm proud of that. But He gave me the opportunity to look at that in a way that says, hey, I can make a decision in this space as I got of age to where I can make my own decisions and change and grow from that. So fast forward from that, I met the most amazing, beautiful person in the world, which is Amy Vaden, my wife. We've been together over 22 years now, coming up on 22 years of marriage here in just a few months, actually, in May. And we've had 4 amazing children. Actually, my oldest son, he's serving in the Air Force. He's deployed downrange right now. And he's 21, and then I have an 18-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So that's Elijah, Noah, Christian, and Isaiah. Just truly been blessed. Things in my career, I joined the Air Force. So that's obviously, I had those children a little bit later than I joined the Air Force. I joined the Air Force in 2001. So I've been at this gig for, a few years now, coming up on 21 in February. And I was a heavy equipment operator in CE. Did not pick that career field. That career field picked me. And I'm telling you, man, the Air Force could not have gotten that more right. I'm a country boy from Mississippi, and I absolutely love that career. But I was supposed to be a crew chief. It's a little bit of a story how I didn't end up a crew chief. I tried to be a PJ for a little while in training, and I missed my class date and some stuff like that. But anyway, the Air Force said, "Hey, we need dirt boys, heavy equipment operators," and I said, "Okay, sure. That I guess I don't really have an option anyway." And I absolutely loved it. Had a great career, a blessed career, but different things throughout my career. As I matured as a person and as an airman and as a leader in the Air Force, I realized I had some emotional scars, some emotional baggage, some psychological scars that I needed to deal with, and that all stemmed from my childhood. So I know you were talking about spiritual readiness and spiritual resiliency, the theme of your podcast, and I definitely had a lot of those in my life, a lot of those types of stories. And I love your statement, what you said, a comma, but God. There's a lot of those moments in my life for sure. And then moving up in the ranks, as I promoted, they kind of ask you to do different things outside of the fun stuff of operating heavy equipment, and get more in administrative roles. I had some amazing assignments, man. People talk bad about Air Force assignments, and I just really never have had a bad one. Even I went down to Barksdale, and everybody's like, "Welcome to Barcatraz. This place, you're going to hate it, and you're never going to leave." One of the best assignments I had, and we only stayed there about 2.5 years, and people were trying to figure out, like, well, what happened? How'd you leave? And well, you've heard of the equals plus, you know how that works, right? You go into AMS and you volunteer for stuff, and that's how that works. But so anyway, just had, great opportunities in the Air Force. I've been blessed to have some really good leaders. I had some that weren't so good we learned from, but everything's happens for a reason and a purpose. And we just continue to move around. God continues to bless and promote. I'll be honest, similar to Chief Bass's story, I never planned on staying in the Air Force. I was going to do 6 years and get out. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna keep going. I felt like it was the right thing to do. I felt led to do it. I felt like it was part of a brotherhood, part of something that I had never been part of like that since, football at a smaller scale. And then, it just felt right. So here we are, almost 21 years later, and still enjoying and very thankful for God's blessings, and getting to be a chief master sergeant in the Air Force is a really cool thing. So
I think there's a lot of us out there that have that 6-year story. Well, 6 years, I'm getting out,
yep.
Call it good. And then you get there and you're like, oh, now I'm hooked.
They didn't tell me it was going to be this fun or this good. I know it's not for everybody, right? And that's one of my big things is one of the things is, it's if it's not for you, that's fine. Let's help find you something that brings you joy. Happiness. I think that's a little bit of a dangerous thing to chase happiness, because that's kind of like a butterfly. Like a dog chasing a butterfly. A little puppy chasing a butterfly. You're never going to catch that joker, and so you got to be careful with that. But what brings you joy? And so that's what I tell our airmen. We have some amazing humans that serve in our Air Force. I know you have the opportunity to have brought some of those civilians in and transition them to airmen, and then also to lead them into becoming leaders of airmen. So amazing opportunities you have in front of you and in your past. But yeah, hey, sometimes it's time to go and do something else, and that's awesome. Thank you for your service. And sometimes I think we coerce people into staying, sometimes that shouldn't stay, and sometimes we belittle those people that leave that we should never do that. Never belittle anybody, regardless of their decisions. But so anyway, yeah, it's 6 years, we're done, and next thing you know, we're not. So,
and actually, I've been able to sit in as a first sergeant in in some of the times where I've been able to sit down with somebody and said, "Let me help you through the door. Don't let me show you the door.
Right.
Let me help you get out the right way instead of doing the wrong thing, getting out that time." So, Chief, I am absolutely excited to have you here. I'm going to do what I'm going to call rapid fire. I've got some questions that I randomly pulled out of the Apples to Apples game, which I absolutely love. If you're getting to know somebody, especially, I do this with an airman. I always do this with my airmen. Whenever I first sit down with them, I just randomly pull out questions and just ask them. So what is one thing that you find repulsive?
One thing I find repulsive, so there's a lot of things. To narrow it down to when we talk about from a leadership perspective or just human nature, I find it repulsive when people lie, and lazy and lying. So the LL, if you will, laziness and lying, man, I can put up with a lot of stuff. I can put up with a lot of stuff just based on things I've been through in life. If you're working hard, and even if you're not good at it, but you're working hard at it, we can work with that. If you're telling the truth and it's just not something I want to hear, I can definitely deal with that. Don't ever lie to me, because once you lie to me, I'm going to lose trust, and it's just repulsive, right? Like you said, I've never described it that way, I guess, but I probably used that emoji before when somebody asked me something that, how does lying make you feel? I use that green face, and then the next one was actually vomiting.
That's a great answer, actually. The LL, lazy and lies. Don't be lazy and don't lie to me. I'm gonna have to use that with my son. I think I'm gonna have to learn that one with him. What is one thing that is inside your shopping cart, your online shopping cart right now, that you haven't bought quite yet?
It's a fake autograph, right? So the people have autographed it, but I don't even know what it's called, but they use a machine that replicates it or whatever. It's in my Amazon shopping cart. It's a Mississippi State football, because I love Mississippi State football. And it's an actual football that's been autographed by Dak Prescott. It's probably the best thing that ever happened to Mississippi State football. Not probably, in my opinion, he is the best thing that ever happened to state football. But that's in my shopping cart right now. I just keep moving to save later, because I really, having to tell Amy, my wife, that I spent $32 on a football that never actually gets used, just sits somewhere. I'm not sure how to tell her that yet. After 21 years of marriage, I still don't know how to tell her that. So it's just still sitting in the shopping cart.
So what I heard is it doesn't get easier. Got it. So is it better to ask for forgiveness or ask for permission in that case?
In this case, it's definitely permission. But that is one thing I've learned over my years of marriage, is just communication. And we can definitely talk that more in depth if you want later. But definitely communication. Of course, I'm just having a little bit of fun with it. She really doesn't care if I buy the football or not. But at the same time, it's one of those things just out of respect, right? Love is an action. It takes work, right? Love is not an emotion. Love is not a feeling. But anyway, don't get me on down that rabbit hole. I'll set up a camp spot down there, and we'll just camp out for a long time. But it's definitely communication and transparency for sure with your spouse. It goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a lot of collateral for that one, right? Yeah. My wife is actually listening in the kitchen right now. She just peeked her head around the corner, and I could see it out of the side. I'm like, oh, she's going to say something later.
She's making a checklist of what she's doing.
She is making a checklist.
She's like, I heard you tell that one dude that you were going to do X, Y, and Z.
Dang it, I knew this was going to come back to bite me. Hey, so what is one thing? I know that after 21 years, you can pick probably a whole lot. What is one thing that you absolutely love about your job?
It's the people. It always has been. I don't even have to think a half a second about that. It's always been the people. Just coming from my background, the things I've dealt with as a kid, as a young man growing up, I'm just trying to make a difference in people's lives. And I didn't realize that as an A1C. All you got to do is just tell somebody you care about them and take care of them. Actually take the actions to show that you care about them. And man, they'll go to war with you any day. And in my earlier days in the Air Force, a lot of people call us the chair force, which I give them grace. I just tell the Army HUA stands for heads up air power, and I keep moving out and drawing fire. But, it's one of those things. We deployed a lot. We went outside the wire a lot. And we needed to have that trust. And I learned early on, just from a human aspect, just care about people and treat them well. Treat them. Sometimes it's dangerous. We say, treat people how you want to be treated. Well, that doesn't always work out, because sometimes people don't really care how they're treated, and they live by that mantra. But yeah, just be kind, man. It's so free, right? It's free to be kind. And, we talk about from the spiritual aspect. I know you're a Christian as well. And, if we just followed that, right? Just, love your neighbor as yourself kind of, concept, right? It goes so far. So yeah, the people, sorry, you're not going to get a short answer out of me tonight, man. People's where it's at. That's why I keep getting up and going to work.
You're building up my time here, and I love it, because this is all going to wrap into an amazing conversation. We've already had an amazing conversation before we even started recording. So I knew that I could ask you anything that you love about your job, and I'd get that answer. So knowing the people understanding the aspect of care, I actually say the exact same thing with every ALS, Airmen Leadership School class, that I get to come through. I said, you got to care enough to at least tell somebody you don't care. Yeah. At least let them know they need to go somewhere else to get the level of care that they need in that moment. So I talk that all day, every day. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, is when people don't even care enough. So what would you leave your job for? What is one thing that you would absolutely today leave your job for?
So I got my personal values, right? So we got Air Force core values, and so for your civilian audience that might not know that, it's integrity first, service for self, and excellence in everything we do. For me, I always tell people you got to have personal values because there's a time and a place, and it's not a knock on Air Force values at all. So I don't want anybody to take away what I'm saying and think that. Definitely not that. For me, it's you have to have personal values because sometimes your personal values don't. Those core values for the Air Force are to bring us together to accomplish a mission as a group and have common bounds or common bonds and commonalities, right? That we can share amongst each other and get us united. But individuals, we're all different. We're individuals. So for me, it's faith, family, and service. Those are my personal values. Anytime that I feel like my faith or my family are being compromised upon, it's not, as it's not as easy as just walking out of your job today, kind of thing when you're United States military. I mean, you got contracts, you got obligations, but those are the things that would make me seek to exit the Air Force. Obviously, we got contracts and ramifications for those types of things, but that would be on a cordial path, right? I mean, if there was something more dire, more serious, if I lost a family member and I didn't feel like I could perform in the Air Force anymore, then that'd be more of an immediate kind of exit. But yeah, overall, just generally speaking, if my personal values or faith or family are compromised, past a point where I feel like, hey, that's going to take me away from being Caleb. That's going to take me away from being the husband and the father that I need to be and that I'm called to be. Then it's time for me to let that service commitment I currently have run out and me go find something else to do in life, man.
Absolutely. So, final question: book recommendation.
So there's quite a few out there that I like. I'm reading through one right now. It's called Quiet. Which obviously I struggle with being quiet. But so I've got quite a few books out there. I know there's one Fire Starters out there that there's a couple of my friends actually helped author a chapter in that. So I know you said one book, man, but I can't just do one book. Lincoln on Leadership is a great book as well. But so there's a ton of them out there. But from a leadership perspective, if you're talking strict leadership type of stuff, I would say I would recommend Fire Starters because it's got a couple of different viewpoints in there that I think that really get after, no kidding and no pun intended, but starting that fire inside of you or reigniting a fire, that spark, that might have been in you before that fire that was burning in that book can be that spark to kind of reignite that. So, Tony Dungy. I love Tony Dungy I'm a football guy, right? But I love Tony Dungy as a coach, as a person, man. He's been through so much. He's such trauma that's happened in his family. And he's got a few books out there as well that are just phenomenal. Anyway, you said one book. I gave you about 5, so I don't apologize.
Well, if you had to pick one, I'm guessing it would be Fire Starters.
Yep, that's the one we'll go with.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll actually put a link to that in the description. Once we get everything up and going, we're going to have a book recommendation page strictly put for that. So I will ensure that we put a link to it on there. Thank you, Chief. Like this is great already starting. I've got a few notes already put down for books that I'm going to look up. Tony Dungy is one of my favorite authors. Just the way that he looks at stuff. I love how he links sports and the spiritual side together because he is a strong, devout Christian. And he writes with such conviction and passion about leadership, looking at his leadership side. And exactly like his tragedies led to a lot of his decisions and how he was as a person. And then, working with Peyton Manning going through to the Super Bowl and just his mindset is amazing. So
a real quick note on that, man. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got a devotion. My wife got me a devotion for Christmas. It's a daily devotion by Tony Dungy. And, his father was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. Like he has it. Yeah, I did not either, and I've read his books before, so I'm going to do some more research on it. He was talked about in the devotion. He'd given an example about something his dad had said about overcoming adversity and things, and I was like, I did not know that. So anyway, but yeah, you're absolutely right, man. He connects the dots really well. If you're a football person and a spiritual person, you might want to pick up his books because man, the correlations are phenomenal. So. But sorry to interrupt you there, man. I just learned that today when I was reading it today. I'm on my way to run out the door to work, and I grabbed that book, and I'm reading through it, and I'm like, shut up! I did not know that.
Well, when you get the opportunity and you remember, or you have a moment, please shoot a text to me with that, because I'd love to pick it up myself just to be able to start looking, because I'm always looking for ways to make it better. I've got the daily devotional that sits on my desk that my wife and I, that my wife gave me, and so each year I try to go through it. And but man, amazing. So every one of us has a different leadership style, and looking at it from the spiritual side or from the family side or from the work side, how would you describe your leadership style?
Leadership style. So we describe what we think we are, right? There's like three different versions of it. There's what we see, what other people perceive, and then what reality is, somewhere in the middle. And like John Wooden said, we spend more of our time developing our character versus, what people think about us. That's a reputation. But anyway, to answer your question, I think I'm probably, I would say somewhere in between, wide open and very open kind of thing. As far as what I mean by that is, I like to run, man. You know what I mean? Not necessarily just physically. I do like running, but just I like to operate at what I call the speed of trust. I'm going to trust you until I can't trust you, and you give me a reason to not trust. And I got that phrase from General Goldfein. It was our chief of staff of the Air Force, as you know and you remember. But he's like, "Hey, we got to operate at the speed of trust." And man, I just took that. I'd operated that way for a while, but didn't realize I didn't have a term for it. I try to be very open, and I'm a coach. I think that's probably another way to put it. I see myself as a coach. I would hope that other people would, describe me that way to their friends and their peers, because what I don't want to do is empower people at the wrong level or unprepared or without the right authority level, because then all we're doing is feeding them to the wolves or throwing them in the fire, whatever phrase you want to use. So I've spent a lot of time in football, a lot of time coaching football, pee-wee football and stuff like that. And I approach our airmen and our philosophy in the Air Force the same way. We have to coach. So I would say maybe a better way to say it is a wide open coach. You know what I mean? And with a lot of love. People don't use that word because we associate it with so many different things. I think the Greek language does such a great job. It's more of like a brotherly love, a godly love, and there's the intimate type of love. In the English language, people just kind of associate it typically with something that's, I love football, and they don't really know what that means, but they just like it a whole lot, or with maybe a more of an intimate type of thing. So anyway, I try to lead with love, and what I mean by that is being, love is patient, love is kind, love is long suffering, right? All those things that we might be familiar with from a scripture standpoint. I try to apply that in my leadership principles. So.
Yeah, I understand. The aspect of love is one that we're still walking through with our son. So our son was adopted a year and a half ago. And this is still something that we're doing. He uses the words, "I love you," but the words don't always meet up with the action. So what he's doing is not necessarily the same thing as what he is saying. And I like that you lead with love, because, love is so easily manipulated. And I think that if we don't truly have a true vision of what that looks like, if we don't have an example in front of us, a lot of us can miss the mark on that. So leading with love is great. And I talk to my airmen, and this may be a little weird, about intimacy, but I say it just to kind of give them the shock, and then I say, but here's why I look at it this way. Into me, you see. Who you see in front of you is going to be the person that you're going to get. That's that intimacy level. Like, you will know me. I will be here for you. So that is awesome to hear. Just number one, the speed of trust is a great quote. And then lead with love. So speaking, this whole podcast is going to be centered around the idea of spiritual resiliency. So I want to know what comes to mind whenever we talk about spiritual resiliency to you.
So the first thing that comes to mind is strength of my God, my Savior, and my weakness, right? So when I think about, spiritual resiliency or spiritual readiness, I think about all the things that I cannot do. And then, sometimes it takes us a long time to figure out. It takes me, I'll say me, it takes me a long time to figure out, even after previous experiences of knowing that I don't have what it takes. And I need a higher power. And in my case, I need God to get me through whatever X, Y, and Z is, whatever that situation is. That's what comes to mind is my reliance and my need to rely on God versus on my own understanding or my own strengths. Yes, He has blessed me with some things, right? And I need to utilize those things and not take them for granted and not utilize them. So I know he wants me to utilize them and wants me to perform at the very best that I can. Whatever I put my hand to the plow, I'm not going to turn around and look back, kind of thing. Once I start, I'm going to finish, and I'm going to do it to his glory. But I also have to be understanding that, hey, guess what? I don't have everything it takes. I don't need to wait till I run to the very end and be like, okay, now I need your help. So it's kind of a constant, kind of like from a readiness aspect in the United States military, you don't wait till there's a threat of a war or a threat of an engagement to be like, oh, you know what, guys, teammates, Airmen, we should probably go get ready. No, that's way too late then, right? Some of you might get ready and some of you probably won't. Let's go ahead and say most of you probably won't. So spiritual readiness is the same thing, spiritual resiliency. So if you're claiming that, hey, I am a prescribed faith, whatever that faith is, you got to be a disciple of it. That is the way I see it. Same thing as like in the military, we got to train, we got to be ready and stay ready for whatever that engagement may be. Same thing in the spiritual realm. When you talk about spiritual readiness or spiritual resiliency, you got to be, if it's a devotion, a daily devotion, it's a daily reading, whatever it is for you, to know and have those things in your head so that when those hard times come, it's not like you search for a long time to figure out like, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. It's just in your head. Like one of my favorite verses, Proverbs 4, verse 23, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So for me, it's that spiritual readiness about protecting my heart as well, right? Because those actions that we take, those words that we speak come from the heart. So I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, man, but you guys said what comes to my mind, that's what came to my mind.
Oh, that's 100%, Chief. That is 100% the guarding of the heart. And I think that everyone gets caught up in spiritual resiliency. I think that it's so diverse that we don't have a good, solid definition of what it is. So that's why it's important to kind of explore it, to be able to see how you see things is different than how I'm going to see things. It's just like scripture. I can sit there and I can be going through something. You could be going through something completely different. We read the exact same thing and we're going to see it differently, right? Like we're going to have deeper impact coming from it. And I think that's what is important about the team aspect. Every team member that comes into play is going to have a different role in that experience. And that's why it's important to know your inventory. In wartime leadership, one of the things that I have built up and that I've talked about is be prepared. Be prepared for any situation that comes. And one of those is knowing and inventorying your tools, what you have at your disposal, and understanding that even spiritually, people bring different things to that team. You have to know where they are at that point so you know what they need help with.
Yep, absolutely.
If I don't know my people, then that's a fail on me.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things too, where it goes back to where I talk about leading with love. And so I'm also one of those types of people that I will take the time, and I would encourage all of us to do this, no matter what your walk of life is, to build those relationships. Because trust is the foundation of everything. Nobody's able to convince me anything differently, I don't believe. But trust being the foundation of everything when it comes to leadership. Because if you don't trust me, you're not going to share with me, right? So I can ask you the checkbox questions. Where are you from? What made you join the Air Force, or maybe whatever corporation or company you work for, or whatever? What made you leave your hometown? And you'll probably share that type of stuff with me. But the more deep meanings in life and your values and what wakes you up in the morning, truly, and being honest with each other, that takes time, and you got to build trust. So to your point, man, so any young leader that's out there, or even older leader, doesn't really matter. If you're maybe new in the leadership roles and you don't know all your people, don't beat yourself up. It takes time to get to know your people. If you're making the effort, a concerted effort, people are going to see that. People are going to appreciate that. Man, it took me a long time to realize that. I used to think that I had to do everything today. Like I got to go let everybody know that I want to build a relationship. I want to be trustworthy. It took me a little while before I realized that people see us. People are watching you, no matter what your rank is, good or bad, whatever your actions are. People are watching you, making assessments and determining, kind of like the pre-gaming, if you will, knowing whether they're going to trust you or not, or at least be willing to start that journey with you or not. So you're absolutely right. It's a very diverse, even from the same faith base, it's diverse, and then even from other faith bases as well. So when you're doing it right, though, man, you find that you're not judging and you're just trying to help, right? No more, not being judgmental and just trying to help people is a huge step.
And you're right on. Relationship is where healing happens, right? And that's even just on that personal level with your airmen, with your employees, with the person across the street. Healing happens in the context of relationships. Like that is, we can't have a very truly honest conversation until we have an established relationship where I can look at you and say, I have seen you, and now here's where we need to fix some things. Yep. That's spiritual, emotional. It doesn't matter which way you look at it. So, but in looking, I want you to look at how you personally build spiritual resiliency. What's that look like with you, your family, your teammates?
So, spiritual resiliency, if we start in the workplace first, actually, let's back up. Let's start in my personal life, or in my life, I guess I could say, how I go about that and how I go about that with my family. And then we'll touch on the Air Force piece. So for me personally, I got it right here. I know people listening won't be able to see it unless you stream it later on some type of video. I got a Bible here. Like I said before when I opened up, that I am a Christian. I know there's other faith bases out there in the world, and I'm fine with it. I'm okay with that. Not prescribing one or the other. This is my choice. This is what I choose. So the Bible is with me pretty much everywhere. Obviously people got it in their phone. I just showed you a hard copy for those that aren't watching video, but just listening to it later on audio. And it's a journaling Bible. It's something someone gave to me. I've had Bibles for a long time, but this one was given to me by Timothy Sterner. He's a retired Air Force chief. At the time, he wasn't retired. On my chief promotion ceremony, he gave me the one that I just showed you. And it really meant a lot to me that somebody would give me a Bible on the occasion of my promotion. And it means a lot. And it could be like 3 podcasts on like why I thought it was so important for him to do that and to protect your heart, going back to that analogy and making sure that, because sometimes you see it, man, people get a little bit too big for their britches kind of thing, the old saying, and do things that just aren't right because power or authority or the level of prestige or whatever it may be, for people, they don't stay grounded and humble. So anyway, going on a little bit of a tangent here, but you got me talking about spiritual stuff, man, so I'm going to talk. But I journal in my Bible. So right now I'm actually, there's also a printout in it. I wanted to find peace and clarity. I wanted to enhance my peace and clarity in life, because we all go through different seasons in life, no matter in the military, no matter what rank you are, what jobs you're in, just people, we have different spots in our journey. So anyway, I've been going through peace and clarity. So I've been every morning, and also do a couple of devotions that are on my phone. So about being a father and about raising sons and stuff like that, because I know I've got an older son and it probably won't be that much longer, probably another 3 years, and he'll be having children. So I'm just kind of refreshing, like, what did I go through when I was teaching him and stuff like that. So I like to keep myself young, I guess, in that regard. But yeah, so I got about 3 devotions that I'm doing on a regular. I like using the print Bible because that makes me focus. If I'm on my phone, it's like, hey, what, something pops up and gets my attention or whatever, So anyway, I do that. My personal life, my prayer life, I definitely have. I pray in the morning. I pray with my kids in the morning. And it's not every morning. I'm not perfect, y'all. So it's not every morning that happens. But I strive for that. And I pray in the evenings for myself. So in the mornings, usually when I get to my workstation, I usually get there before everybody else gets there. And, I have a moment of prayer. I pray over, the things I'm going to be doing that day. And like, hey, what? I want to be a light. I want to be used by you. And I want to be, something, the conduit, if you will, right, of good things. So, and for my family, we don't every night, but as much as we can, we sit around the table, we have good conversation. I've already, told you one of my oldest son's out of the house. He's on his own now. But my other 3 children that are here with me, other 3 sons, as we can, we sit around and we talk about, life, right? We eat dinner and we talk about life. I don't sit there and say, on all occasions, hey, we're going to read this verse. And we're going to talk about this verse. I don't always do that, but we intertwine that stuff in our everyday life and just asking them what their perspective on it is. Hey, was love shown in this? I raised my sons with 4 values: integrity, love, courage, and discipline. That's what I raised my sons with. They pick their own values once they're old enough to determine them, and they could use those same values. That's fine, but we'll have discussions. Excuse me, I apologize. I got a hiccup. We use those around discussions of life. So that's the family. I pray with my wife. So that's kind of like the family unit, if you will, my personal and family unit. And then as far as at work, man, in the military, it is a little more difficult. I have to be careful too from my position, right? The position that I hold in the Air Force, to not make it where anyone would feel like they're unwelcome, or anyone that would feel, and we know that's not true, right? I would never do that for someone or to someone, but you can give that perception. You have to be very careful of how you do things and what you say and when you say it and how you say it. And I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. I'm not saying that in a bad way or a mean way or unappreciative way. It's just life. That's the way it is. So when people open up to me and they say, "Hey, Chief, what can you explain to me, like how you walked through this situation? Like you told me that story. How did you walk through that and keep a smile? Like what happened?" I'm like, "All right, can I tell you about my faith?" If they open that door and they say, "Yeah, please tell me about your faith," I'll tell them about my faith. So it's a little bit different in the military. When I'm wearing my uniform, it's a little different. I don't get up in the pulpit and preach or anything like that. But I will share. If people ask me, I will definitely share. And here's a shout out to anybody out there, whatever faith that you're in. If you're following your prescribed faith, you don't have to. I can't never say the word right. Proselytize, I think is how you say it. You don't have to be up and be a prophet for that particular religion. Just live how you're supposed to be living according to the faith that you follow, and people are going to notice a difference, right? They're going to notice a difference, and they're going to want to know more because more times than not, you're that light in a dark place, and they want to know more about how you handle yourself. So that's the 5 minute of the 5 hour version of faith in the Vaden household.
Well, it's really interesting that you say that because, as an MTI, I was put into a situation where I'd have those trainees asking the questions of, how did you make it through it? And I'd be like, well, you're asking a very honest question. Now, do you want me to give you a very honest answer? And as soon as they would say yes, I would be like, it's my faith. My faith has guided me. And that opens up that conversation. And you're right. There's like this very fine line that you have to navigate sometimes. But when the door is open, you have to step through. Like there's that moment that's opened up. Let me step through. Let me truly explain to you what is there, how I made it. So I appreciate you sharing that, Chief. And I know we don't have too much more time, but I'd like you to maybe walk us through how or what did you do to overcome and push through a situation in your life where you had to rely solely on your spiritual resiliency?
Absolutely. So, and I know I had talked to you earlier. I'd ask my spouse to take care of a couple of things for me, my lovely wife, so we can stay on a little longer. So to overcoming something in my life, and there's been a lot. I wear a bracelet for a couple of them that go back to some crazy bad days in Afghanistan. But it's easier to process those in the moment because the adrenaline, the heat of the moment and the situation. So those are easier to process until you're in a quiet space. But the one I want to share with you, and so I guess that's my plug for anyone out there dealing with things that don't do it alone, and then don't try to keep yourself so busy you don't have to deal with it, because I know exactly what that feels like. Where you just keep running, you keep gunning, just so you don't have to deal with those emotional scars in your psychological space, right? But the one I want to share with you is, and I'll keep everybody nameless because I have spoken to my sister about sharing these things, so I'll keep them nameless out of respect for my sister. But I lost my two nieces just a few months ago. It's about a year. It's a little over a year ago now. 16 and 12 years old in a car accident. One of the hardest things, that I've had to walk through. Can't even begin to understand and imagine how my sister felt with that, of losing two children, not just one child, but two children, her only two biological children. So in those moments, you find yourself really struggling of like the meaning of life, right? Like I said, I've had quite a bit of loss in my life with friends and, close friends, not blood brothers, but brothers that I'm closer to, honestly, in the military. And so, losing that. So I've got some loss in the life that I've had to deal with. And then when it hits so close to your doorstep, I lost my nephew, United States Marine. I lost my nephew back at 14. That was very, very difficult. But hey, and not making light of that situation, that's where we step up, right? And we're called to a different calling, a different purpose to serve. And it's in a heroic way, and it's easier, not easy, but easier to process than two babies, right? Two babies get taken out in a car accident. So in that moment, man, those moments, and just going through that, here I am and been just kind of giving you some backstory of all the stuff that I've been through, and carrying those caskets were the hardest caskets I've ever had to carry. So for me, just processing through that, going back to being, we talked about spiritual readiness earlier, right? And I told you, like, hey, that's always got to be in your mind. I tell you, man, and I might get a little emotional about it, but I was having to quote those verses in my head. You know what I mean? Like, because as a person for my sister, my brother for my sister, of staying strong. She's going through all this stuff. You just keep it locked in and press on. I look back. There's a couple of my blood brothers as well. That were. I wish I would have done it a little bit differently, but they kind of started breaking down when we were walking up to the gravesite. I'm under my breath. I'm like, you got to lock it up. You keep this stuff straight, and move forward. We'll talk. We'll process this afterwards outside my sister's site. That's kind of, I guess, the military in me coming out. But those are the times, man, where I was really in the Word. And it's unfortunate for most people in a walk of faith that you really kind of get comfortable in life and you lose sight, and you're not in it diligently. You're not in the Word. You're not praying. And man, that's when something happens. In the military, we say always stay in ready, left to boom, so you always got to be ready, left to boom. And in our walk in faith, we never do that, right? So not never, that's the wrong way to say it. Most of the time we don't do that. We let boom happen. Then we go digging in the Word, like, where's this verse at? I need some strength. And, I need to start praying and like, God, you got to help me in this situation. And so for me, thankfully, God has impressed upon me in my life and the things He's taken me through. That was there. Those verses were there, and I'll never leave you or forsake you. And there's another verse, the actual scripture numbers leave my mind right now, but I won't put more on you than you can take without my grace. Right? A lot of people leave that part out. It's like, well, God's not going to put more on me than I can handle. No, that's not what was actually said. We find ourselves in, when I'm, with my nieces, that's more than human, more than Caleb the man can take. That's more than I can take. Losing my friends in Afghanistan, that's more than I can take. Losing my nephew, 21 years old, that's more than the human Caleb can take. So not that I won't have to endure more than I can handle. It's more than I can handle without him at my side. So, wow. Yeah, I know that's, we could talk for hours on that, man, but those are the things that the verses that I had not rehearsed, but that I'd read. I'd been in the Word, so it wasn't like it was foreign to me. Now, don't get me wrong. I go to Google too. I'm like, all right, I want to know more. I know there's something I was thinking about. It was this verse I read in Psalms. What was that verse about love or peace or about grace in Psalms? And what did David say? So I'd Google that real quick, and then, yep, that's the verse, and it's already highlighted in my hard print Bible. So those are the types of things, man, in life. Things too. And I'm not saying it has to be so horrific as the example I gave you. There might be people listening to your podcast that says, well, I didn't have anyone get taken from me in a horrific way, or just, lost a loved one. But you know what? You could be going through something at work, man. You could be going through, maybe you got a toxic boss, or maybe you got or something you describe as a toxic boss, or maybe you got, peers or teammates that just aren't good people, or they aren't acting right or treating you well. And you're like, man, I haven't lost anybody, but Caleb said, you just got to keep going, but I did say that, but what else do you need to be doing in those spaces? So everybody's situation is different. So where we get in the dangerous game is comparing our life to other people's life, our journey to other people's journey, our trials, our tribulations to other people's, and saying, oh, well, mine's not that bad. Next thing you know is you've let that stuff build up, and then that starts controlling the narrative. That's where something else gets a foothold in your life, starts controlling the narrative, and then you've lost it, right? You've lost control in that situation. So again, I guess it's just one of those things of don't let what we would know as me and you in our faith is the devil to tempt us and to pull us away from the Word and get a foothold in our lives and start controlling the narrative. That's what I encourage you to tell people to not do. And regardless of the size of the circumstance, no matter what that is, it's if you feel like, hey, this is tough, you should already be in the Word, but you need to get in the Word if you're not, whatever your faith base is. So, yeah, man, that's one of the toughest things I've had to go through. And I don't know, man, if without God at my side, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion, or definitely not in this flavor.
Yeah, well, Caleb told me that because he lost somebody, that my bad boss is not that big of a deal. I used to, for years, I used to pray for God, give me a testimony, right? It's really weird to say it that way, but I always used to be like, God, I've never been through adversity. My parents are still together. They've been married for 50 plus years now. I grew up in a great childhood, faith-based childhood. I ran away from it, which is a totally different podcast that I'll have going on at some point. But God, give me a testimony. And the whole time the testimony was right in front of me. The situation that you're going through, you can never look at somebody and think less of what they're going through. It may be a lot less than what you have gone through in your life, but your job is to look across at them and walk them through that. It's not small, it's big to them.
Absolutely.
It needs to be just as big to you.
Absolutely, man. That's part of empathy and sympathy, right? So I'll give you this example. Our military, your military audience will appreciate. So at a point in time in Afghanistan, not too long ago, we got attacked, and we'll leave all the details out. Some obvious stuff we don't need to talk about, but so we're undergoing an attack, and I'm sure some people will know what outgoing sounds like from arty, from artillery, right? It will shake you and rock you, especially if it's only like 25 meters away. And so we had an individual that, heard the sirens, heard the CRAMs going off. And for our civilian audience, if you don't know what a CRAM is, look up Google CRAM and you'll be impressed. It's basically a defense system, right?
Most sound in the world.
It's that, well, maybe an A10 Warthog sounds a little bit better, but I give you that. I mean, that's a close second, right? Especially if you're on the inside and they're shooting at you, you want to hear the CRAMs going off. But anyway, gets in a bunker and thought we were getting overrun. Because of the outgoing. The outgoing was, pretty crazy. So anyway, fast forward, people were saying, I can't believe this person's got to go home, because we ended up sending the member home. The member could not adjust, and it was safer to send that member to get care at another facility. No physical damage, but psychological damage, right? And I heard people saying, I'm just sitting there just listening to people and talk about it, because I'm the chief, right? And I'm just go walk through organizations and hearing people talk and describe the attack and stuff like that, and they were saying, I overheard somebody say that I cannot believe that this is happening. Like, any idea of like how the stuff that we have been through, and I don't know all their story and what they'd been through prior to that deployment. And to your point, though, man, I was like, look, anytime that you make somebody's experience insignificant, you have failed them. You have failed them, and we cannot afford to fail people. Don't ever try to put yourself in their boots with your experiences, because that's not how we do life, right? You got to do life at their doorstep. What are they going through? What happened in that action? And all of us in that particular space are not medical professionals. It's not our job to determine whether somebody should, quote unquote, should or should not, how they should adjust to the whims of war or the whims of an attack. So anyway, yeah, just kind of expounding on that, what you said, man, that was perfectly said by you. Don't ever make their situation seem insignificant, right? So we have to be guarded and protected in our words, because you might think that for whatever reason. And I'm not telling you to stop thinking, because so many times people lie, man, it's a facade. I would never think that. No, you did. You were just smart enough not to say it, right? So let's try to put yourself in seeing life from their perspective. And we could even go into race and a lot of other things. Try to see it from their perspective, right? You don't have their experiences. You don't know what made them react that way. Try to understand it. What we need to do at the end of the day is be there for one another, right? Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox, man, because that gets me fired up. Is when people start making other people's experiences insignificant based on their experience, right? So that's a no-go.
No, Chief. Hey, you know what? You can by all means go off on any of these subjects at all. I mean, because you're fire. You are the flame that is just kind of riding out across the Air Force, because I think that we in society, I don't think that the civilian side will truly be able to see this, because in the civilian sector, in the civilian side, we don't get into people's business as much, right? Like there is a clear separation between work and life. And they don't too often feed into one another. In the military, we really try to take that a whole nother level, right? Or we're supposed to feed into each other. I want to know who your wife is. I want to know who your husband is. I want to know your kids' names. Great Chief Silva. This chief reached out to me while I was deployed for the first time. Had never met the guy in my life. And he had reached out. He was staying in contact. I had actually stayed an additional rotation just simply because the individual that was supposed to take over for me was having the birth of their first child. And he knew me so well that before he even contacted me, he knew my dog's name. He knew my mom and dad's name. He knew all of these aspects about me before I even got there. It didn't matter what the situation was that I was living through. He wanted me to know that he was there, that there was somebody on my side fighting for me here, stateside. And I can't
That's
say that
awesome.
enough. There's been plenty of opportunities where I've been away and my wife has been in a car accident, and that first sergeant, that person who cares enough to go do this other job where they're there to be for the people, to help people navigate through life's situations. They went out and they got my wife, right? They made sure they put eyes on her and then let me know. I had enough trust in that person, right? We had been the speed of trust with each other,
Yeah.
that they knew what I needed to be able to be successful where I was. And I think that we lose that translation in the civilian world just because they're not as brought up. I would love, whenever I transition out of the military, that is one thing that I hope to be able to do, is to be able to show the value in care, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole organizations, man. I might even find myself working for one day, if the good Lord's willing, but they have to teach essentially emotional skills, emotional intelligence, if you will, EQ, to business leaders. And it's like the first time they've heard it, right? I had an opportunity to sit in a class not too long ago with some other military members of equal or greater status than the positions we're currently all in together, similar positions, and then talking about the civilian counterparts, right? Of like, you know who so and so at X, Y, and Z level, like kind of your experience, what their dog's name is. Now, look, I will be honest with you. Like the individual that works as my teammate, you can call them executive assistants in the Air Force, but I call them, she's my teammate, my wingman. When I first met her, I was like, this is going to seem very mechanized, but I want you to fill out this form. It's a form essentially of what are your favorite things? What are your favorite drinks? Because when I'm out running about the base acting like crazy, here and there and everywhere else, I'm gonna stop by Starbucks and pick up your favorite drink every once in a while. That's just kind of person I am. So I need to know that. So it's a bit mechanized at first until you build that relationship. And you're absolutely right, man. Civilian sector doesn't have that. We have that. They have to teach it. Now, we don't have it as great in the military as we should have it, right? We have built the social environment, if you will. We've kind of put that in the parameters with our core values and everything we teach airmen, but it gets lost along the way sometimes, doesn't it, man? And that's just human nature that not everybody's going to care at the same rate that the rest of us care at, or some others care at. But that's just where we have to keep staying after it, and stay with it, and just kind of keep being that example, right? We can't fix everything. Fix everything within your wheelhouse, within your AOR, and everything else you have to be the example for.
I refer to those as the spheres of influence, right? You have to stay within your sphere of influence and want to grow it, right? But so one last question for you. I want you to look back. I want you to be at the end of your career and looking back. What do you want your legacy to look like, and what will other people see your legacy as?
This is something I spend time on, and I have spent time on. And I said it earlier when I was talking about living in the dash. I don't know if we were recording yet or at the time or not, but we have our birth year. For me, it's 1981. And then there's a dash that we're all living in right now. If you're alive right now, you're in that dash. And hopefully that other year is a long ways off, right? And we're talking about a tombstone, right? Or headstone, or whatever you want to call it. And hopefully mine's a long ways off, but you never know. That dash could end, like I was just telling you about my little nieces, that dash could end at any day, right? So I try to live every day like it's my last, of course, in accordance with UCMJ and all the applicable laws, right? I'm not doing illegal activities, but I like to have fun. So looking back, when you say, like, for me, I say, hey, where are you sitting at? What are you doing? Like, are you on a fishing boat? For me, I'm sitting on probably the West Coast, somewhere in the mountains. Maybe, who knows where I'm going to be, but I like the ocean. I like mountains. That's kind of a good spot right there, and probably got some sweet tea because I won't be worried about the calorie intake and the PT test anymore. And so I'll probably have some sweet tea looking out at the sunset. And man, I want to be able to look. If I could just imagine everybody that I've ever served with, anybody I've ever done life with, and if I could look across them, I need all of them, and not that they would be telling a fib, but all of them to be like, you did me right. Like, if there's one person that I did wrong, then I don't know if I'd use the big F word of fail, but I definitely wasn't successful. Therefore, I was a failure at that. So what I mean by that is I'm human. I have messed up a lot, my man. I have messed up a lot. What we have to do, and it goes in line with forgiveness, you have to seek forgiveness. Admit you messed up with somebody, and then whatever that may be. Maybe you spouted off the mouth when you shouldn't have, or let's say maybe I spouted off the mouth when I shouldn't have, or did something wrong, not intentionally, and maybe sometimes even intentionally. I have to have the fortitude to go to that person and say, can you please forgive me? And once you've gotten to that state, like if that person chooses not to forgive me, then they've chosen not to forgive me. But at least I did the part that I could after I'd messed up. So anyway, looking back over life, I hope to be remembered as somebody that cared, that tried to create a remarkable experience for everybody I came across, and tried to show them they had potential, they were valued in this life, that somebody loves them, and that they have a lot of potential, even if they can't see it yet, because we were all created for a specific purpose. And that purpose is great. And it's to show other people love. Is one of the purposes to show other people love and help each other. So hopefully that's what I am remembered for. Now, to your second question, what will people actually say? I have no idea, bro. They'll probably be like, that was one of the craziest people I've ever come across. I like to have a lot of fun, and he lived life to the very fullest, and he broke his body down doing it because I just never learned my lesson.
So anyway, I don't. Story of a dirt boy, right?
Yeah, man, I've got more back issues. My back's hurting right now. I'm trying to move around in this chair. I'm waiting to get my back fused, actually. But yeah, so there's what will they actually say when it's all said and done? I'm not sure. But the last piece I'll leave you with on that question, it's a legacy, right? What I'm trying to do is leave a legacy. And the legacy is not in, dude, I could have the same legacy when I was an A1C finishing up, right? I'm grateful that I got to be a Chief Master Sergeant. The Air Force says, hey, go lead as a chief. That'd be great. I'm appreciative of that, but that's not what defines me. That's not my legacy. My stripes aren't my legacy. The awards, the decorations aren't my legacy. It's the brothers and sisters that I've served with, but more importantly, my sons and my wife. My sons are my legacy. So if I'm spending time developing them and giving them the opportunity to make the choices to be good young men that are upright citizens of our nation, then great. And they can live on and be like, you know what, Dad showed us love. That's one thing Dad got good. That's what he got right. I want to continue to show people love. That's the legacy I could hope for, man, is that they would show people love and follow God. That's what I want them to do. It has to be their choice. I can't make them do it. But that's the legacy I hope to leave. And on the military side, I hope the same thing, man. It's the same legacy. It's just show each other love and help each other make it through this life. That's all I can ask for. And that's all I would ever want to be remembered for. Nobody great, nobody special, just a simple country boy out here trying to do the good work, man.
Just a simple country boy, dirt pusher.
Yep.
Good old boy. All right,
That's
me. Hey, Chief, I am blessed that you gave us the time today to sit down and just run through this. You're the first of what I hope to be many guests. Sorry, my dogs seem to disagree.
That dog knows the truth. I'll be the first. Many guests will be much better than me. That dog, I get that dude off here.
Now, let me try that again. I'll edit that out. Chief Caleb Vaden, so blessed to have had you on today to be able to just share a little piece of your faith about what makes you tick, how your family, how you build that spiritual resiliency of your family and your teammates. I am beyond blessed with I have so many notes just for my own personal edification that I will ensure that get into some of those aspects of our episode description. So thank you so much to you. You have been a blessing, to say the least. Any final words you have for anyone?
Oh, you know what? Well, it's dangerous to ask Caleb if he's got any final words. I'll write you a whole nother book. But it's been a blessing, honestly, to be on here. I know how hard it is to get things like this off the ground. So just kudos to you for pushing through it and following your dreams, man. Turning over every rock. Every rock you want to turn over. And what I will leave everyone with, and Joe Bogdan, man, a good friend of mine and a brother in Christ, and brother in arms. He is a phenomenal person. He calls them Calebisms, but things that I'll say, but you know what? It takes a boot mentality, man. And I'll give you a link sometime, man, to watch some more on boot mentality. But it's a tough life. It's a tough road that we're on, and nobody says it's going to be easy. And if they said it was going to be easy, they straight lied to you, or they're living in some fantasy world. No matter what your walk is, what your faith is, life is hard, and we're built. Humans are made for community. Humans are made for connection. No matter what faith you believe in, I'm telling you, all humans work better when we're connected and we care about each other. So, yeah, having a boot mentality, man, that's that durable, tough footwear. You think about hiking and stuff like that. That's the kind of person I am. We ain't out here wearing slippers. You're going to slip an ankle if you're wearing some slippers. The slipper's the easy button. You hit that easy button so many times, you're going to find yourself buried and pulled way apart from what you thought you were set out in life to do. And So don't be afraid of the naysayers out there. To any of your listeners, don't be afraid of the naysayers. It's easy to sit at the bottom of the mountain around that little pool down there at the bottom and say, that sure is a long hike. I really hope it works out well for you. It's easy to sit down there. Only the tough ones, the ones that really want to find out what they're made of, and the ones that really want to find out what true success to them is in life, lace up your boots and start walking that long path. And there's plenty of people on that path to help you. You just got to let them know that you need some help, right? And don't be afraid to do that, and don't be afraid to connect and care for each other. So, yeah, man, it's been an honor to be on here, man. I really feel that this thing's going to take off for you, and you're going to have plenty of guests come on here and be able to give you and your audience great wisdom and just sharing and grow from one another. So thanks again for reaching out, man, and just inviting me on, man. It's been a blast. Hey, things like this re-energize me, you know what I mean? Like it refills my cup. So just being able to share with other people.
Well, just remember, folks, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. That is what we are all about in searching for spiritual resiliency. So we will see you next time on the Wartime Leadership Podcast.